It's a good bounce back win for us today. I thought we started the game with the right tone on the defensive end, and so that was that was by design for us to get back to our normal.
It is a rare occurrence in the world of sports when a single decision transcends the boundaries of the game, morphing into a cultural flashpoint that reveals the intricate, often unseen, machinery of ego, commerce, and tradition that operates behind the curtain of competition. The official story, delivered with practiced calm, was a masterclass in sterile simplicity. Caitlin Clark, the generational talent who had electrified college basketball and brought unprecedented eyes to the women's game, would not be representing the United States at the 2024 Paris Olympics. The reason? She needed more experience. It was about basketball, they said. It was about defensive maturity, about integrating into a complex system, about the unspoken dues owed to those who had come before. It was a narrative of patience, a gentle suggestion that even a comet must wait its turn. But narratives, like quiet rivers, often hide turbulent depths, and as the polished statement settled, a countercurrent began to surge, fed by whispers, insinuations, and a single potent symbol: the number 22. What emerged from the shadows was not a story of basketball readiness, but a Shakespearean drama of clashing titans, a silent war waged not on the parquet floor, but in the boardrooms, the locker rooms, and the shadowy corridors of influence. This is the exposed truth behind the decision that cost the WNBA millions, a saga of petty jealousies, billion-dollar branding, and a revenge tour so spectacular it rewrote the future of the sport in real time. To understand the explosion, one must first comprehend the catalyst. Caitlin Clark is not merely a basketball player. She is an economic and cultural phenomenon. From the moment she launched a Logo 3 at Iowa, she became the architect of the Caitlin effect, a force that sold out arenas months in advance, shattered television rating records held for decades, and transformed regional broadcasts into national events. At the epicenter of this phenomenon was a visual identifier, the number 22. This was not a casual choice of digits. It was the cornerstone of a global trademark. The number 22 became synonymous with audacity, with range, with a revolution. It was plastered on best-selling jerseys, featured in Nike's multi-million-dollar campaigns, etched onto the hoodies of a new generation of fans. It represented a psychological contract between the athlete and her audience. See the 22, and you think of the 40-foot dagger, the no-look pass, the sold-out crowd roaring in unison. Marketing experts dissected this linkage with awe. The data was staggering. The 22 transcended apparel. It was a logo for an entire movement. To ask Caitlin Clark to change her number was, in the high-stakes arena of sports branding, akin to asking Coca-Cola to temporarily change its red can to blue for a special event. It would create brand dissonance, dilute a carefully cultivated identity, and fracture the visual continuity that sponsors like Nike had invested years and fortunes to build. There is legitimate, heavy speculation that Clark's camp, backed by the implicit pressure of her landmark $28 million endorsement deal, made it clear she is the brand, and the brand wears 22. In a world where athletes are corporations, this was not a diva's request, it was a boardroom consideration. When you are the face of a sport's explosive growth, you do not blend into the chorus. You stand, unmistakably, in the spotlight. This demand, however, collided with an institution and its reigning monarch. On Team USA, the number 22 was not fabric. It was a relic, a testament to earned glory. It belonged to Aja Wilson, the two-time WNBA MVP, a champion, the dominant force and emotional cornerstone of the national team. Wilson had worn that number for her country for years, through Olympic qualifiers and gold medal victories. It was part of her identity within that sacred circle. In the unspoken, deeply ingrained hierarchy of sports culture, particularly within the tight-knit sorority of USA basketball, such a symbol is not casually surrendered. You do not, as a rookie, no matter how luminous your fame, walk into the sanctum and demand the jersey of the franchise player. It is a violation of code, an affront to the currency of seniority and respect, paid in sweat, sacrifice, and gold. Thus, the stage was set for an impossible diplomatic standoff. On one side, Clark, the seismic incoming tide of popularity and commercial might, backed by data and dollars, her identity inextricably linked to two digits. On the other, Wilson, the established, respected peak of the sport's existing mountain, her claim rooted in tenure, achievement, and the respect of her peers. Sources suggest the selection committee found itself in a nightmare. How do you choose? Grant Clark the number, and you risk alienating your leader, disrupting team chemistry, and sending a message that commercial power trumps legacy. Deny her, and you potentially sideline the sport's most potent growth engine. Rumors swirled that neither faction would budge. Wilson, rightfully proud, was not giving up her number. Clark's team, protective of their asset, allegedly balked at the idea of their star being visually marginalized, potentially relegated to the bench in an unfamiliar jersey. What was framed as a petty squabble was, in reality, a profound clash of values. Legacy versus leverage, tradition versus transformation. But to reduce this conflict to a jersey dispute is to mistake the spark for the fuel. The number was merely the flashpoint for a smoldering resentment that had been building for months. The old guard of the WNBA had watched Clark's meteoritic rise with a mixture of awe and deep unease. The league they had built through decades of obscurity and struggle was suddenly being commandeered by a white, blonde rookie from Iowa. Her narrative dominating headlines they felt belonged to veterans who had carried the torch through darker times. The sentiment was crystallized by legend Diana Taurasi's now infamous comment during the NCAA tournament, "Reality is coming." It was uttered with a smirk, less a prediction than a warning, a signal to the tribe. When the Olympic Committee convened, this undercurrent of feeling reportedly shaped the conversation. The roster, insiders suggest, wasn't curated solely on a spreadsheet of stats. It was forged in the fires of loyalty. Players like Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, and Chelsea Gray had formed a decade-long sisterhood through national team duty. They viewed it as a sacred fraternity, with rites of passage and dues paid in full. Clark, in their eyes, was attempting to skip the line, her celebrity a golden ticket they refused to honor. The committee, influenced by this powerful bloc, chose chemistry, the known, comfortable cohesion of the sisterhood, over the unpredictable cyclone of popularity that Clark represented. They aimed to protect a culture. To many fans, however, it looked like pure gatekeeping, an act of jealous preservation by an elite club terrified of a new, louder membership. Central to this drama was the figure of Team USA head coach Cheryl Reeve. A brilliant tactician, Reeve's social media activity in the preceding months became a source of intense scrutiny. Internet sleuths documented her liking posts that subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, downplayed the Clark phenomenon, expressing annoyance at the media circus surrounding Iowa. There was a palpable sense that the coach, a steward of the system, was weary of the hype overshadowing the established order. When she delivered the verdict, citing basketball reasons and defensive concerns, her explanation rang hollow to a growing chorus. How could the best passer and most explosive offensive engine in the world, a player who routinely defied defensive schemes, not be among the top 12? The omission felt visceral, personal. It seemed Reeve had made a calculated choice to win in Paris with her system, her veterans, and without the distracting, omnipresent Caitlin Clark media storm. In doing so, she sought to ensure the story would be about the collective, not the individual. The tragic irony, of course, is that by leaving Clark off, she made the entire summer about the one player who wasn't there. Adding another layer of Byzantine complexity was the role of Nike, the financial engine of the sport. Both Aja Wilson and Caitlin Clark were and are Nike athletes. The company typically gets what it wants, and it wanted Clark in Paris. The marketing machinery was pre-oiled. Campaigns were storyboarded, merchandise designed, narrative arcs prepared. Yet, the Leviathan hesitated. Nike found itself in a brutal internal civil war. Wilson, after years of fan demand and undeniable dominance, had just received her first signature shoe. Clark, meanwhile, had been handed a historic $28 million deal and a signature shoe line before playing a single professional minute. The disparity in reward for service versus potential created palpable friction. If Nike strong-armed USA Basketball into taking Clark and granting her the number 22, they risked a mutiny among their established, loyal stars, Wilson, Stewart, and others. The billion-dollar brand was caught in a trap of its own making, forced to choose between its past investments and its future kingmaker. Sources suggest Nike attempted to broker a backroom compromise on the jersey, but the egos and principles involved were too monumental. Even swoosh's power had its limits. The result was a stalemate that cost the company, the networks, and the sport itself a fortune. Let us speak plainly of the money, for the figures are a silent scream of missed opportunity. The 2024 Paris Olympics were a success for Team USA. On the scoreboard, another gold medal secured. But in the broadcast vans and boardrooms of NBC, there was a sense of profound loss. The network had built its promotional strategy for women's basketball around Caitlin Clark, the transcendent draw. Her snub wasn't just a roster decision. It was a programming catastrophe. The data doesn't lie. Every WNBA game featuring Clark shattered viewership records, drawing ratings that rivaled mid-tier NBA games. Arenas transformed into sold-out temples when she arrived. They reverted to echoing gyms when she did not. The casual fan, the millions of new eyes Clark had brought to the sport, had no attachment to the legacy of Team USA's dominance. They were not invested in a 7th consecutive gold medal won by 30-point margins. They were invested in the phenomenon. And when the phenomenon was deemed unworthy, they tuned out. NBC's ratings, while solid, fell grotesquely short of projections. By prioritizing locker room politics and seniority protocol over the tectonic pull of a superstar, USA Basketball didn't just leave a player at home, they left hundreds of millions of advertising dollars on the table and fumbled the single greatest marketing moment in the history of women's sports. They chose to soothe the pride of 12 players over captivating 12 million fans. The snub did not occur in a vacuum. It unfolded against the backdrop of Clark's brutal initiation into the WNBA. The first half of her season was a sustained physical and psychological assault. Opponents face-guarded her from full court, delivered hip checks that sent her sprawling, see Chennedy Carter, and celebrated hard fouls against her with visceral glee, see Angel Reese. The league's veterans seemed united in a mission to welcome the rookie, and referees often appeared to swallow their whistles, allowing the baptism by fire to rage. This context is crucial. For Clark's camp, the hostility on the court validated their wariness of it. Why fight for a spot on a team where the locker room might be an extension of the on-court chill? Why sacrifice bodily and mental energy for veterans who seem to resent your very presence? The message from the league was stark. You aren't one of us yet. If that was the case, why would she expend her depleted reserves to help them win a gold medal they were heavily favored to secure without her? The Olympic snub began to look less like an exclusion and more like an escape. Here lies the magnificent twist, the plot turn that reshaped the universe of the story. The snub, portrayed as a humiliating setback, became the catalyst for Clark's ascension to undisputed royalty. While the media cacophony decried the injustice, sources close to Clark indicate there was a profound sense of relief. She was physically and mentally exhausted. A year-long marathon from the NCAA tournament run to the draft to the immediate, punishing WNBA schedule. Her legs were shot, her legendary shot falling short. The Olympic break granted her a precious, unplanned month, a time to vacation, to disconnect from the toxicity, to heal and to train. While Aja Wilson and the sisterhood grinded through the pressure cooker of Paris, Clark was in the weight room on the practice court, restoring her mind and body. The punishment had become a perverse gift. When the season resumed, a transformation had occurred. The hesitant rookie was gone. In her place stood a vengeful queen. The narratives used to exclude her became the pillars of her revenge. They said she couldn't defend. She began racking up steals and blocks with shrewd anticipation. They said she turned the ball over too much. She orchestrated the offense with surgical precision, delivering a record-shattering 19-assist game and shattering the WNBA's single-season assist record. The Indiana Fever, a lottery team, catapulted into playoff contention. This was her statement to the selection committee, not a press release, but a highlight reel of dominance. Every triple-double was a quiet, devastating rebuttal. She proved she wasn't just one of the top 12 players in the world. She was, unequivocally, top 5. The revenge tour was executed, not with angry words, but with sublime, undeniable excellence. The media landscape pivoted violently in the wake of her performance. Early season caution from pundits evaporated. Voices like Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe, who command the attention of millions, began lambasting the jealousy and pettiness of the WNBA's establishment. The story was no longer, "Is Clark ready?" but "Why is the WNBA actively sabotaging its own golden goose?" The jersey number dispute was exposed as a laughably superficial pretext for deeper, uglier insecurities. The gatekeepers, Reeve, the selection committee, the vocal veterans lost control. Their attempt to protect the sanctity of their circle made them appear not as dignified guardians, but as cliquish, mean girls guarding a high school lunch table. The public, witnessing Clark's grace under fire and subsequent dominance, sided overwhelmingly with the outsider. The proof was in the purchases. Clark's Fever #WOW jersey became the best-selling jersey in the history of the sport, while Team USA merchandise gathered dust. The cultural and commercial verdict was in. Part X, The Inevitable Future, 2028, and The Reckoning. So where does this leave us? Paris is over. The gold medal hangs around familiar necks. But the shadow of the snub stretches long toward Los Angeles in 2028. That will be the home game. By then, Diana Taurasi will be retired. The old guard's influence will have waned. Caitlin Clark will be 26, in the absolute prime of her career, likely a reigning MVP and champion. The power dynamics will have undergone a seismic inversion. In 2024, Clark was a supplicant, asking for permission. In 2028, USA Basketball will be a supplicant, begging for her participation. The leverage will have utterly shifted. The question of the number 22 will resurface, but its context will be transformed. Will A'ja Wilson, then the veteran elder, voluntarily pass the torch and the number in a symbolic moment of unity? Or will a new conflict arise? One thing is certain. The disrespect of 2024 will not be forgotten. It is now a foundational chapter in Clark's legend, a scar that signifies a battle she ultimately won without ever stepping onto the Olympic court. History's judgment is often cruel in its clarity. In the months following the Olympics, Clark's statistics reached historic, mythological proportions. The first rookie to record a triple-double, the single-season assist record demolished, MVP-caliber performances night after night. The not-ready argument of June was rendered absurd by August. The committee bet against her development, assuming a rookie wall. Instead, she built a fortress. We must, in fairness, note that A'ja Wilson was magnificent in Paris, earning tournament MVP and leading her team with dominant force. Yet, the haunting footnote to her triumph was the persistent question from reporters: what about Caitlin Clark? This is the ultimate tragedy of the decision. By excluding Clark, USA Basketball didn't protect Wilson's moment. They poisoned it. They created an unnecessary, divisive rivalry where there could have been a legendary partnership, a passing of the torch on the global stage. Instead of a dream team narrative, they fostered a narrative of resentment. The saga of Caitlin Clark and the Olympic snub is more than a sports story. It is a parable about the tension between tradition and disruption, between protecting what is and embracing what could be. It reveals the uncomfortable intersection of pure sport with the multi-billion-dollar engines of branding and media. It is a story where a jersey number became a flag in a war for the soul of a sport. And in the end, the war was won not by committees or legends, but by a young woman with a basketball. whose silent, spectacular answer on the court echoed louder than any decision made in a closed room. The bounce-back win was not just for her team on a given night. It was for a new era, claiming its place, one impossible pass and one iconic number at a time.